WCFL in Chicago at 5:31. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, which has been postponed by fog. Now then, if you're tired of hanging around bars trying to pick up members of the opposite sex, as we all know, you'll never meet anybody respectable in a bar or tavern. Just tramps in there and trash who just want... they're just interested in a physical thing. Well, for those of you who are searching for a dignified, meaningful relationship, now there's ComDate's computer dating service. If you've ever wondered about ComDates, here's how it works, and it sure is scientific. When you join ComDates, you fill out the ComDate's personality profile, giving information about the type of people you'd like to date. Your data is programmed into the ComDate's computer, and each month the computer selects dates for you. You meet people from your area matched to you by your personality profile. You receive helpful information about your dates to make that first meeting with the opposite sex sheer ecstasy. So why not find out what ComDate's computer dating service can do for you? Call 777-1100. Call now. Operators will be glad to send you a free, no-obligation personality profile. Again, I remind you, no hitting on the operators. Some of you people show no class. With ComDate's computer dating service, you meet at least 2 new people each month for an entire year. ComDate's computer dating service has several romantic people who want to meet you. Call 777-1100. Check your Chicago white pages or ask your Chicago operator for computer dating service. WCFL in Chicago. It's 5:29. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Today's letter is from a young lady named Laura, who writes, Dear Jerk. Let's scratch that young lady named Laura a bit. This is from an idiot kid named Laura. Dear Jerk, comma, I've listened to several radio stations, and CFL is my favorite. So last Saturday, when I was downtown, I went to the Marina Towers to visit WCFL, but the security guard said I couldn't. I had visited CFL before you came, and I enjoyed it, and I was looking forward to it again, but when the man said I couldn't, I asked why, and he said, Mr. Lujack doesn't want visitors. He doesn't like people. Now, if that isn't babyish to spoil other people's enjoyment because you think you're something special, I just don't know what to say except you are a conceited rat. I saw you on a talk show once. You were being interviewed in your apartment. I loved your apartment, but hated you and your lousy personality. My friends agree 100% with me. I just don't understand people like you. People that may never travel out of the city of Chicago would like to see all that they can of it. And would it be so hard for you to let people watch you for maybe 2 hours on a Saturday afternoon? Of course not. It wouldn't hurt you one bit. I am being very serious about this, too. I feel so sorry for you that I am going to start praying for you every night so that hopefully your personality will change. Signed, Laura. Well, Laura, you sound like a nice enough person, but you're a little mixed up on what your rights as a citizen of the United States actually are. You see, if you want to stare at caged animals, you go to Brookfield Zoo. But this radio station pays me to do the very best job I can. That takes concentration, and I don't need distractions like people staring at me while I'm working, or tapping on the window, or making faces and obscene gestures through the glass. And occasionally we get a flasher. So this policy will remain in effect, Laura, until you can show me the line in the Constitution that guarantees you the inalienable right to stare at rock and roll disc jockeys on Saturday afternoon or any other afternoon. I see. Grizzly bears at the zoo are public property. But I'm not. And I doubt very seriously that, somebody like Picasso, while he was creating, I doubt very seriously that Picasso let people into his studio to watch him. And it's the same thing here, kid. An artist is at work, and he wants to be left alone. However, I do want you to keep on praying for me, because you know the motto of the show.
We need a whole lot more Jesus and a lot less rock and roll.
However, I do recognize my responsibility to provide equal time to those with opposing views.
I am the God of hellfire, and I bring you fire.
WCFL in Chicago at 5:28. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letters of the day, preceded by the usual cheap, homemade fanfare. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. This first one is from Kathy Bradford of Glendale Heights, who writes, a little poem there, Glendale Heights, who writes, Dear Lair, hey, how come you don't do the cheap, trashy showbiz report anymore like you used to? Also animal stories, and can this marriage be saved? Well, that was 3 years ago, before I came here, when I did that stuff. That was when I was still a kid, But I'm more mature now. I like to think I'm more adult. And I just got tired of doing that junk. As I grow older, I don't want to get involved. Actually, reading these letters gets to be a drag, and I'd like to stop this, too, but they won't let me. Here's one from Gina Capra. Dear Super Jock, will you please send me an autographed picture of your elbow? That's in reference, never mind what that's in reference to. It's not worth going into. Here's a letter from Marie. Dear Larry Lujack, could you please play the song You're So Vain by Carly Simon? It's very important. Here's a quarter, so you'll play it. And she enclosed a quarter. I'd sure like to help you with that, Marie, but if I play the song after accepting your quarter, then that's payola, and that's illegal. And I am keeping the quarter, so I can't play the song. Wouldn't want me to get in trouble, would you? Here's one from Ron Majkrowski. Nice try, anyway. Ron wants to know, says, I'm not going to read this whole letter. We had a baby boy on January 16th. I called WCFL and talked to some lady and asked if she would ask you to announce it over the air, but you didn't. How come? I didn't want to, Ron. That's, I just tell it like it is. I didn't want to. Ron, this may come as, kind of a disappointment to you, but nobody cares. And this is a big city, man. There are 8 million people in the metropolitan area, and outside of, your close friends and relatives, the rest of those people couldn't care less. I know it's important to you, but, and this is a big-time station. We don't have time to, mess around. You know how many kids are born every day in this city? We don't have time for birth announcements and lost dogs and cats. Well, of course, Artie was an exception, but that was only because Artie was a very valuable dog, a very smart dog. And he was lost, so we had to help find him. Well, I'll tell you what, Ron, I'll make you a deal. If your kid, as he gets bigger, if he ever gets lost, call me and I'll help you out, but only if he's valuable. WCFL in Chicago at 5:28. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Today's letter is from a college student named Steve Stoneberg, who writes, Dear Lair, I've been an avid listener of CFL for many years. I'm originally from Addison, but am now attending college in Angola, Indiana. During the past few months, my roommate, Vic, and I... Steve and Vic, a roommate. have been recording the Klunk Letters of the day. We have now accumulated over 35 of them. Our all-time fave was the letter requesting the antidote to the poisonous glue on the back of the Super CFL stickers. Anyway, about a year from now, we would like to pick out the best of the Klunk Letters and put them in an album. This is where you come in, Lair. We need your permission to go ahead with this project. Since the public always gets what it deserves, we feel this thing will make mucho monies for you and us if we get your go-ahead. Very truly yours, Steve Stoneberg. Request denied. Steve Stoneberg, if anybody puts on an album of my junk, it will be me, and I will make all the money, and I won't have to split. You college kids just quit trying to rip me off and, get on with the revolution. On that subject, I was reading the personals column of one of our underground alternative culture papers here in Chicago. I always read the personal columns. There's some pretty interesting stuff in there. And I saw my own name. This is from this week's issue of The Reader. It says, Larry Lujack freaks. If anyone has a tape of the Klunk Letter, which was aired on October 24th, 1973, please contact, I guess the guy's name and address. I want to make a copy of the tape for myself. Your tape, plus $5, will be returned. This worries me just a little bit because I wonder why he wants a tape of that particular letter. I can't think of any other reason other than the fact that, he's probably going to sue me or something. It's pretty cheap. He's only paying $5 for it. He'll probably sue me for $5 million. I may pay you $10 not to send that one if you have it. Steve has a PS here too. Oh yeah, there's a little college humor here. P.S. You really should play more songs by Jim Croce. You Jim Croce freaks can just back off. I'll make you a deal. I will play more Jim Croce records as soon as he records some more. Is that fair enough? WCFL in Chicago, 5:27. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letters of the day. Da-da-da-da-da-da. This first one comes from those snotty kids at Northwestern who said it's special delivery, so it would arrive in time to be read on Groundhog's Eve, which it is tonight, of course. Dear Lair, comma, we of McCulloch Hall, Northwestern University, parentheses, that's a Big Ten school there. I hate you college creeps, I really do. Peep out of our holes to extend you greetings for a happy 1974 Groundhog's Day. Here's hoping that your brilliance radiates throughout Chicagoland on this special day, bringing us summer warmth in the weeks to come. Sincerely yours. That's signed by a whole bunch of guys here. P.S. Contrary to your popular beliefs, all of the college students here at Northwestern are not snotty, egotistical, intellectual, long-haired hippies. Some of us are just hard-working country boys who have planted the seeds of diligence, are cultivating our academic prowess, and are awaiting harvest of the big green. I've analyzed that last sentence very carefully. You can take that two ways. One is they're talking about, their eventual careers in the big bucks. Probably translated, that means they've all got big flower pots outside their windows and they're not growing flowers in them. Dear Mr. Lujack, you really are a jerk. You read my friend Marie's letter on Wednesday, and you wouldn't play You're So Vain by Carly Simon. She even gave you a quarter because she really digs that song. Well, that was my quarter. She borrowed it from me, and she said she'd pay me back. And now she won't pay me back because you are keeping it and didn't even play the song. Could you please play it now so I get at least something out of this deal? Jackie, P.S. Any late word on Artie? No, Artie is still lost, and I wish you'd get lost, too. Jackie, because I didn't play that song the other night, and I'm keeping the quarter to teach you kids a lesson. Your parents are supposed to teach you these kind of things, but if they won't, then I guess it's up to me. You don't accept candy or offers of rides from strangers, and you don't send money to disc jockeys because they will not send it back. And I have my integrity to think of. I can't be bought. You can't send me money in order to get a song played. It can't be done. At least not for a quarter, it can't. Come on, kid, I'm big time. WCFL in Chicago, it's 5:29. The Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da is preempted this afternoon so that we may bring you Mr. Lujack's Groundhog's Day address to the nation. My fellow Americans, I am your super jock. Thus, I am authorized to speak on behalf of the entire staff and management of WCFL in wishing you the most memorable, the most joyous Groundhog's Day you've ever experienced in your whole life. Today is also the birthday of George Hallis, February 2nd, the owner of our local NFL pushover. 79 candles for George today, and I often wonder every year when he blows out the candles, what is the wish that he makes? I mean, how does he narrow it down when he needs everything? Running backs, tackles, guards, ends, and offense and defense. He needs a whole football team. How does he narrow it down to just one wish? That's got to be tough. Today has special meaning for all the jocks here at CFL because it is a tradition here at Big Ten Radio that if our general manager, who is a little strange, sees his shadow on this day, everybody gets 6 more weeks on their contract. And this is especially important to, guys like Dick Saint, who are kind of on shaky ground anyway. Groundhog's Day always brings back a flood of unpleasant memories to me because as a teenager, I had a younger brother named Tom. Well, I still have a younger brother named Tom, but fortunately he lives in San Francisco now and I don't have to see him. He's one of these real He-Man field and stream type freaks. And when you're raised in the West, any animal that makes a hole in the ground is an automatic enemy because horses step in holes and they break their legs, and if you happen to be on the horse at this time, the horse can fall on you and break your whole body. So he would go out in the spring, and when the cute little furry groundhogs popped out of their nice warm burrows, he would pop them in the head with a .22 automatic. And then say something like, the only good one of them mothers is a dead one. He had some sort of hang-up, somehow associating guns and killing with masculinity or something. Then he'd bring them home and ask my mother if she wanted to make some sort of stew out of them or something. Not only a killer, he was stupid. WCFL in Chicago at 5:30. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Today's letter is from a Mr. Bob Hamilton who lives here in Chicago and writes, Dear Mr. Lujack, can you please give me some advice about how to get started in radio broadcasting? How did you first get on the air? Once I wrote your general manager, Mr. Lou Witz, a letter around the time the Murphy-Dearborn morning team was broken up. Occasionally, we get letters asking why that was that the Murphy-Dearborn morning team broke up. Basically, it was because they didn't like each other much. Basically, they just hated each other's guts and found it impossible to work with each other, so that's why. And they still don't like each other. Mr. Witz wrote back saying that I could come down and visit him and talk about radio. And that was the chance of a lifetime. But you wouldn't believe what I did. I went down one day and he was out to lunch. Bob, you'll find that Mr. Witch is Mr. You'll find that Mr. Witz is always out to lunch, no matter where he is. But I got a private tour of the studios, but still wanting to talk to the head man, I wrote him a letter asking some questions to show that I was really interested in broadcasting. But unfortunately, at that time, I didn't know very much about radio. I would really appreciate any information you can give me. I have also come to a conclusion about you, Lair. I think that the reason a lot of people don't like you is because they don't understand what you have accomplished. The way I see it is that you reached the height of your career in the past couple of years, and it all came at you so fast with all the mail and all the critics, and being the sensitive person that I really believe you are, you changed drastically. I don't know if it's possible, but if I were you, I would go back and review tapes of shows of a year or two back and just calm down. Oh, jeez. Well, thanks for the tip, Bob. If I were you, I would... I'm glad I'm not you. Well, I would suggest you try to line up another private audience with our Pope here, because Mr. Witz is always happy to talk with you listeners when you drop into the station. And that's mainly because nobody who works here wants to talk to him. He gets lonely in there. It's lonely up at the top. WCFL is Chicago's 5:30. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letters of the day. Well, this first is from a college student over in, I forget where he went to school. It's a faraway place anyway. His name is Virgil. Yeah, it's a good name for a college student. I'm not going to read his whole letter. It's too long. Basically, he's complaining that he can't pick up CFL now that he's gone away to school. And in part, his letter reads, "Not hearing you is almost enough to make me transfer to Purdue, God forbid. But since my major isn't cows or paper airplanes, that wouldn't work. So tell the engineers to get off their duffs and up your station's power and earn their pitiful salaries. And third, please play Diamond Girl for my only true love, Sarah, who lives in my hometown and can easily hear your pearly tones. And say hello to Willie, Gary, and Frank as this Monday is the first anniversary of me running my car into a tree and putting us all in the hospital." Well, happy anniversary, Verge. Here's one from Midlothian, a typical average housewife and mother in Midlothian. Mrs. She just puts her initials here, M.B. As, dear Mr. Lujack, as the mother of two teenagers, I am appealing to you for help. I would talk to them myself, but they have completely tuned me out. And since it is you, their idol, whom they tune in loudly every day, maybe you can make them understand. They pick their faces constantly. Not only do they come out of the bathroom looking like they were attacked by a swarm of bees, but It is also not healthy. And this next paragraph is very funny, but it is so gross, I just can't read it. Would you speak to them? Thank you so much, Mrs. M. I don't like to get involved in these family squabbles. You girls, quit picking your face. Not because I said so, but because your mother says so. That should be good enough reason. Mrs. M.B., by the way, there was a thing in the paper which I commented on a couple of days ago that Benjamin Spock has now admitted that perhaps he went a little overboard with that permissive stuff, and that's why, you can't control kids these days. So, if they don't quit picking their faces, just go ahead and beat them up. Here's one from Donna of Highland Park, who doesn't like me very much. Dear Lujack, how dare you... Then she has an obscene term here, which she's calling me. Jim Croce was one hell of a lot more person than you'll ever be. He gave a damn about people. If you hate listening to people like him and all those others, why don't you get out of the DJing business and let some nice kid that deserves a break get in? I don't care how much money you make. Your listeners deserve better than you. I know that if you read this on the air, you're going to make fun of it. I don't care. I only hope that this letter ruins your day as much as you have mine. Yours for decent DJs, Donna. Hey, right on. That needed to be said. And I agree with everything. If there's some nice kid out here, disc jockey in some small town who thinks he's better than I am, and if he deserves a break, just have him, all you guys just send tapes to the station. I'm not that big a star that I wouldn't step aside, If there was some nice, talented kid out there who deserved a break, I'd let him have his show. WCFL in Chicago at 5:30. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letters of the day. Da-da-da-da-da-da. This first one is from a girl named Renee, who writes, Dear Super Jock, ? I noticed that June 6th on the Super Jock posters is in red. Well, June 6th is not a holiday. There must have been a mistake. No, there's not. I've explained that before. June 6th is marked in red because it's my birthday. And that is a universal holiday. Nobody has to go to work on June 6th, and you get double time for staying home. Check with your employer on this. A letter from Carmen of Chicago Heights. Oh, this is the one I can't read, though. Carmen sent in a poem. Devilishly clever poem. However, there's no way I can get away with reading this on the air. The title of the poem is My First Experience. Thank you for the poem anyway, Carmen. It was good. Here's a letter from a younger listener, judging by the handwriting. Well, of course, with the people who listen to a station like this, you never know. He's probably 37. I know. His name is Jamie, and he writes, Dear Super Jock, I have a basketball hoop. I put your picture on the backboard. When my friends come over, I say, hit the Lujack, and it goes in. Jamie lives in Waukegan. Thank you for writing, Jamie. I would tell you what to do with your basketball, but I've got to get on to the next letter here. Don't write to me again, Jamie, until there's a marked improvement in your penmanship. Here's from South Holland. Dear Super Jock, I am writing this letter concerning the content, and then he has in parentheses, bleep. Only he hasn't got bleep, of your program. Are you the one that is responsible for the junk you play? The DeFranco family, Donny Osmond, and the rest of that teeny bopper bubblegum trash. As you know, the trend is to shut off that AM junk. FM is getting all the listeners because of the heavy acid they play. Get with it, Lair. If you want to keep your job, play some Stones, Led Zeppelin, Who, and Rod Stewart. Signed, an FM listener, J.S. of South Holland. Well, yeah, you FM listeners, you really think you're cool. Well, if you listen to FM, J.S., how come you know I'm playing all that junk? Also, I would think that the average mentality of FM listeners is probably on par with yours. You spell heavy, H-E-A-V-E. That's good. Here's the letter from the mellow South Side. Now, a salute to radio station WCFL for playing more soulful sounds of young black artists. This change is welcomed by me and many other soul fans. To all you blue-eyed brothers, stay on the case and keep getting it on. Signed, Rick Jones. Well, Rick, no matter what our color, we are still your brothers. That's why year after year, this station wins the Wilson Pickett Seal of Approval. We can't help it if we're lily white trash here, but we try to be funky white trash. WCFL in Chicago is 5:28. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da, da-da-da. This is another letter. This is also going to be the last in the series of letters concerning the Jim Croce controversy that is swirling around me of late. I'm not going to go into it again, but in the past week I've been the recipient of much abuse from Jim Croce fans for something I said. It is possible that with that remark, which I'm not even going to repeat, I might have gone a little overboard. But, give me a break, folks. After this is a live show. This is not taped. I can't, go back and erase the tape and start over. When it's out of my mouth, it's gone. I can't take it back. So it's possible that perhaps I overdid it, but I'm just not a big enough person to admit it. This letter is from, this individual just gives his initials. From Lansing, TWB are the initials, and I think probably the reason for that is this person fears for his life if anyone in Lansing knew he wrote this. It's addressed to the savior of Chicago radio. And that is why it was delivered to me. When Larry Lujack gets out of this bind, as he will, who could blame him if he said that with the rest of the world? Let someone else play the Croce records. When the radio stations of Seattle, Boston, and Chicago were breaking down through age, it was Lujack who rebuilt them. When he left KJR Seattle, WMEX Boston, and the Big 89, nobody loaned them an old jock. All of them are still looking for a replacement that can never be found. Super Jock has faced it alone, and I'm one American who is tired of hearing Lujack kicked around. He will come out of this Croce crisis with his head high, and when he does, he is entitled to thumb his nose at the listeners who are gloating over his present trouble. And finally, Music Radio was told at its weekly staff meeting this morning that it was dead. Thank you, WCFL in Chicago. So we add some more money to the super call total. It's now worth $1,400. $1,400. Larry Lujack at 5:29. Time for the Klunk Letters of today. Da-da-da-da-da-dun. Well, today was an exciting day for me. As I opened the mail, I was the recipient today of a letter from the All-Star Frogs fan club. Now, I mention the All-Star Frogs once in a while. They're a band. I've never heard them. I don't know whether they're any good or not. But I just think it's a dynamite name for a band, All-Star Frogs. So they sent me a lot of information about the All-Star Frogs and also a postcard here, which it says here I can fill out and be in the All-Star Frogs fan club if I want. Gosh, I sure hope I can qualify. But I don't want my sister to marry one of them. I don't want my sister marrying an all-star frog. The letter they sent, it's kind of one of those fan club newsletters that they send along with this is just hysterical, and I would read it tonight, except I don't have the time because I'm running a little late tonight, folks. Maybe Monday I'll read that. Here's a letter from two girls, Anne and Sarah. Oh, yeah, they wanted to know what this one of those Ron O'Brien letters. Want to know what happened to Ron O'Brien. This is the last time I'm going to explain what happened to Big Ron O'Brien. Big Ron O'Brien was traded to Denver. Not the Broncos, of course, a radio station in Denver. We gave them O'Brien, and we got 3 sets of headphones and 2 Led Zeppelin albums. And we were lucky to get that. One of the sets of headphones doesn't even work. It's the one I'm wearing. WCFL in Chicago at 5:29. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da, which today is from a young lady named Nina who lives here in Chicago and writes, Dear Lair, 6 months ago I started working in the accounts receivable department of the Conrad Hilton Hotel. When I first started, I received the thrill of my life. It all started when I was taken to the 14th floor cafeteria. While with Joyce, a co-worker, I noticed a man by the coffee machine, scrambled to my feet and screamed, Joyce! Joyce! Isn't that Larry Lujack? To my embarrassment, it was not you. What a letdown. 6 months later, this same man, Bernie, came to our table and asked straight out, who the hell is Larry Lujack? Please send me a picture of you so I can show Bernie who you are and what he should look up to. I enclose a stamped self-addressed envelope for your convenience and urge you to use it. Nina, I'd like to urge you to do something. Is this perfume that you have on this letter the same kind you use on yourself? If it is, that's why the guys are staying away from you in droves. I'm trying to imagine being alone in a car with you with the windows up and no ventilation. I think I would probably slump into unconsciousness. This is bad, wretched. This reeks. This letter has been sitting here all afternoon during the show. I've been inhaling this stuff. This is powerful medicine. A little of this junk goes a long way. It goes way too far. At first, it just started out with, I was having dizzy spells and mild nausea, and now I've got a severe headache. And I think I'm getting hallucinations. And my nose is starting to bleed. I don't want to be cruel, Nina, but I do want to be candid and frank with you. If this is the stuff, this perfume that you use on yourself, you've got a real bad-smelling body. Would you want a gator to eat your granny? Got to have me. Gator loved it. WCFL in Chicago is 5:31. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Well, today was the day that I was going to read the letter from the fan club of the rock and roll band, the All-Star Frogs. However, I can't find it. It's on my desk somewhere back in the office, but the desk is such a mess that maybe I will find it tomorrow. Today's letters I'm going to read parts of 3 letters here. None of these letters are worth finishing. Actually, there isn't a single one that's even worth starting. Here's one from somebody named Chet of Buchanan, Michigan. Let's see, where was the part I wanted to read? Oh, yes. On February 2nd, which was a Saturday, I, along with a few fellow employees, came clear to Chicago to Marina City just to visit CFL, but the elevator wasn't operating that Saturday. Well, Chet, February 2nd was Groundhog's Day, and every Groundhog's Day, the elevator operators here at Marina City get the day off so they can be at home with their families. He also says here that he and his friends found an eye-stopping waitress down in the restaurant downstairs. This puzzles all of us here because we've never seen anyone that fits that description down there. Here's a letter from Glenn Ellen. Oh, yeah, this is a reference to my smoking. It says, remember the old saying, a weak person can stop smoking, but it takes a strong person to face cancer. I'd never heard that old saying, but that is encouraging. It gives me hope. I'm a brave person. Here's one from, I don't know who this is from. Dear Occupant. It's one of those letters with a personal touch. I am writing this letter during 9th period class with my Bic banana at school. Saturday night after the 10:30 movie went off, I saw that commercial that Tom Murphy did about you. I liked the way they rejected him. The kids kicked him and the old lady hitting him, but I think the birds should have did the job on him. It's 5:30 in Chicago. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Diddle-dut, diddle-dun. Today's letter is from an anonymous listener who writes, Dear Superjock, if you could take time from your busy broadcasting schedule of slamming those mother hits through the radios and smashing them into our faces, I have a question, Lair. What jock has the most tenure at Super CFL? I said it had to be Bob Dearborn. My friend says it's your stuntman. Another answer was Dick Shannon. Answers that were not even considered were Dan Sorkin, Dick Biondi, Dr. Brock, Big Ron O'Brien, and world-famous Tom Murphy, who all had relatively short plays. Super Jock was left out of the discussion so that we could keep class jocks separated from the crass jocks. Good idea. P.S. Since you were spinning those golden oldies, Lair, let's see if you can play Deck of Cards by Wink Martindale. Oh, I'm sorry your request does not meet my one qualification. That has to be something I like before I play it. Wink Martindale is a disc jockey in Los Angeles. There has never been, that was a wretched record. Well, he's a wretched disc jockey, too. There has never been, a lot of disc jockeys cut records thinking they can, be big recording stars, but so far, there hasn't many good ones by a disc jockey. That includes mine. A record which is so horrible, it embarrasses me to even think about it. I wish I'd never done that. And it also includes Wolfman Jack's record with the Guess Who, but they made us play that one. To answer your question, well, to answer the request question, no. Okay. You are correct. Bob Dearborn has been here the longest. I think he's been here at CFL for about 4 years, possibly a little over 4 years. Now, this is rather incredible when... now, this, you'll think I made this up. This is not made up. This is truth. Somebody took a survey. There are 7,000 radio stations in the country, approximately. Somebody took a survey. The average stay of a disc jockey at a radio station is, this is particularly in rock and roll, 5 months. And I was talking to Dearborn about this one day. He said he'd been here 4 years and seen something like 30 disc jockeys go through the station and 12 program directors. The swinging doors of rock and roll. Although Bob has been here longer than I have. I've only been here about 2.5 years. I've been in the big time here in Chicago longer than any other rock and roll disc jockey in the city. I am super jock. I've been here for 7.5 years, folks. Other disc jockeys come and go, but the super jock just keeps a coming. Hey, Jude. WCFL in Chicago. It's 5:30. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Ta-da-da-da-da-da. Today's letter is from a girl named Sue, who works in a grocery store. Nice stationery she writes on, too. It's all blue. And then at the top, in big black letters, the words X-Lax. This is official X-Lax stationery. I guess the X-Lax people give this to people who work in stores. Dear Super Jock, I'm just one of those dumb, snotty college girls working her way through school by way of a small grocery store. Well, at least she realizes her limitations. I have a question, Lair. Why are people so impatient? The other day at 5:30, while trying to listen to your Klunk Letter of the Day, a customer walked up to the checkout counter with her groceries. When she asked me to take care of her, I told her to please hush up so I could listen to you. She was actually uncouth enough to walk out the door without even waiting. What makes people this way? I don't know, Sue. Some people are such clods. They just don't respect the rights of you snotty college kids. Snotty college kids are not second-class citizens. They are not even that high. Sue, if that happens again, I think you should just slap her. WCFL at 5:30 in Chicago. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Today's letter is from Rosary High School in Aurora. That's a Catholic girls' school in Aurora. And every year, I do I MC a rock and roll dance over there. And that's what I was doing last Saturday night. Thanks for the memories, Rosary, and most of all, thanks for the money. This letter just arrived today. Actually, it's a little late. This is from the secretary of the student council over there. Her name is Laureen, and she writes, Dear Mr. Lujack, last year, the chaperones for the dance spent many hours scraping those Super Jock bumper stickers from the floors and walls. I got good glue on those mothers. They're hard to get off. This year, the maintenance department requests that you not bring them because of the cost and labor. I'm sure you understand our request and will please cooperate. We appreciate this very much. Well, they lucked out because I forgot to bring them this year anyway. But that makes me feel kind of bad that, last year I took about, 500 or 600 of those CFL bumper stickers over there and just threw them out to the crowd, and then I guess they ended up getting stuck up all over the school. And when I think of all those nice nuns over there at Rosary trying to scrape those off, it makes me feel a little guilty. They have nice nuns over at Rosary. Some of these parochial schools, the nuns are a little on the cranky side, but Rosary's got neat nuns. Or at least they appear to be neat. They smile a lot, and they're friendly. Along this line here, I'm going to play again that record, which we've been playing the last couple of days, by a nun in a convent in Australia, Sister Janet Mead. And with all you hear these days about the devil, the exorcist and all that junk, as a responsible broadcaster, I feel it is my duty to give equal time to the other side. And if by chance you have anyone in your house who is possessed by Satan, the thing to do is turn up the radio real loud while this song is playing and smash the radio into the possessed person's head. And this will drive the demon from him. Woo!
Sock it to him, sister.
WCFL, Larry Lujack at 5:27. Dr. Hook, having just completed a triumphant tour of the beautiful Aragon Ballroom. Anything for Dr. Hook is a triumphant tour when they do not get beer cans thrown at them, which they didn't this time around, so that's a triumphant tour. I was reading an interview in the paper with one of the guys who is in the group, and he was mystified, at a loss to explain why people did not like them. He said, of course, people who are doing a lot of reds and come up and scream at the band, "Hit me with your guitar," they won't like us, but he couldn't figure out why the rest of them didn't. I'm not going to worry about it. The Klunk Letter of the Day is canceled this evening because Super Jock has a headache and is just not in the mood for this whole routine. I'm just trying to get this show over with. WCFL in Chicago at 5:28. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Today's letter is from a member of the Ides and Shames Union. This is a rock and roll band, folks. Now, first I should sketch in some of the background. A couple of weeks ago, I commented that, the Ides of March, which was a rock and roll band, had broken up, and the Crying Shames, also a rock and roll band, had broken up a long time ago. Well, anyway, some of the members got together and decided to form a new band called the Ides and Shames Union. I thought this was really a dumb name, and so I said so. And I felt better. So today I get a letter from John, who I guess is in the band. See, I thought that was a case of taking two names which weren't very good in the first place and then making one which was worse, the Ides and Shames Union. Dear Mr. Lujack, we are aware of your recent comments concerning our group's name. Naturally, we would accept constructive criticism from anyone, but sarcasm is useless. We spent quite some time and exerted quite a bit of strength trying to come up with the right name. It seems the Ides of Shame, or Cryin' Ides, did not work. Also borrowing from the Sutherland Brothers and Quiver, we came up with the Ides of March and the Cryin' Shames, which was definitely too long. We suppose the easiest way would have been to come up with some hip name. However, we did not wish to follow the crowd. So forth and so on. I'm not going to read the rest of the letter. You're right. Sarcasm is useless. I will now give you some constructive criticism. Rather than combining the names like that, you should be trying to hide the fact that you ever belong to one of those bands. Because, you see, who wants to listen to has-beens sing, Sugar and Spice and Vehicle? Nobody. I mean, there was a reason that the Ides of March and the Cryin' Shames only had one national hit each. The reason may or may not have been that they were just not good enough. In any case, I wouldn't go advertising the fact that your new band is a collection of washed-up members from the old bands. You should come up with a brand new name and start fresh. Now, I will give you an example of what will happen. Mark my words, this is what will happen. Okay, I'm going to put on a little skit here now where I'm going to play the part of a sophomore at New Trier West High School who says to the other kid, "Hey, who's at the big teen dance tonight at the Wild Goose?" And now I'll play the part of the other kid. The Ides and Shames Union. Now back to the sophomore, New Trier West. It's not going to make it, I'm telling you. You got to come up with a new name. Start all over again. Like the name is everything. I think one of the better names for a band in the past, year or so or a couple of years. Edgar Winter's band, White Trash. Now, there's a name that says something. Last week, my favorite band was the All-Star Frogs. I thought that was a really neat name, but I have a new favorite band this week. This morning before I went on the air, I was reading a record magazine, and there is this new band that I think is going to be the new supergroup of the 70s, just based on their name alone. The name of this band is Quacky Duck and his Barnyard Friends. They've got to be dynamite. So there was some constructive criticism, you rock and roll idiots. Now leave me alone. WCFL in Chicago at 5:29. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da. This is from a couple of ladies who just signed their initials. Lonely ladies. These would be good prospects for computer dating. Dear Lair, my very good friend and I are each divorced women with 4 children apiece. Well, at least you're fertile. This past summer, we took all the kids to Randhurst for the fashion show which you emceed. Neither of us actually went to see the teeny boppers do their thing to the Candyman. But to stare at you, yes, we must admit that we are great fans of yours. I went to a music store in Woodfield to get a couple of Larry Lujack posters, and apparently the salesmen were not Larry Lujack fans because they not only gave me a couple, they gave me all the posters they had. Now I am the official Larry Lujack Superjock poster distributor on my block. Well, congratulations to you. This is an important, responsible position. My son's second grade teacher has one of these hanging on the front of the puppet stage in school. If I can manage to hold on to most of these posters, I plan to paper a wall in my family room with them. Anytime you would like to take us up on our offer, we would love to buy you a drink. So if you'd like, come on up to the Manheim Strip. And maybe we will see you there. I'll bet you won't. All our love. And it's signed here. Well, thanks for the love, but I don't need it. I do need the drink, though, but there's no way I'm going to the Manheim Strip for it. Why don't you just send me the money and I'll buy the drink myself. I'm not coming to the Manheim Strip for several reasons. One is that's a high crime area. I'm afraid to go into the Manheim Strip. And also, I don't know how we'd get all 8 kids crammed in a Corvette. WCFL in Chicago is 5:28. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letters of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Here's one from, I got several letters today. They're all quickies. One from Donna of Cicero, who writes, Dear Superjock, today some dude told me that DJs test themselves to see if they talk clear. First, they put a whole bunch of marbles in their mouth. Then they start talking and record what they say on a tape recorder. Then they play the tape back to themselves, and even with the marbles in their mouth, they talk loud and clear if they're good DJs. That is. Tell me the truth, Lair. Do you do this? If you do use the marbles, I'll bet you're the most far-out French kisser around. You wouldn't believe it, but you'll never find out. Donna, no, that's... We don't do that. Once in a while on the air, though, you hear me talking with a cookie in my mouth when I'm eating lunch on company time, as I quite often do. Here's one from some girl who, this one I'll just summarize here. She says she needs a picture of me and can't make it to the nearest 7-Eleven store to get a Superjack poster because the 7-Eleven store is too far out. I'm dying to get a hold of some kind of picture of you so I can sketch you. I have a newspaper photo of Tom Murphy. It's far from being clear, but I'll make the best out of it. Drawing disc jockeys is something I like to do in my leisure time. Oh, what a fun hobby. To me, DJs are very special people. Well, we are. silly, naive little thing. P.S. If you hadn't been a disc jockey, what do you think you would have gotten into? Well, as a youth, I wanted to get into cattle rustling, and actually I still do. Here's one from Alice. Dear Mr. Lujack, last Thursday night, Valentine's night, I was going to Osco's on Ashland Avenue, and while I was waiting to get a parking place, a guy walked in front of my car who looked just like you. I wanted to scream, Larry Lujack! But if it wasn't you, people would have said, where? So was it you? It was about 7:10 at night. Alice. Wasn't me, Alice. But if you ever see me, you just go right ahead and scream, Larry Lujack, or anything you want. Don't scream rape, though. I don't need that. One final one. This is just a postcard from the Symbionese Liberation Army. It says, hey, klutz, you're not even worth kidnapping. Okay. Doesn't hurt my feelings a bit. WCFL in Chicago. It's 5:30. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. Well, today's letter, as I pointed out before, is from the mother of a kid in a rock and roll band. Now, I'm going to delete the name of this mother and also the name of the band because I don't want to embarrass the parties concerned, nor do I need any more lawsuits. That's the main reason. What we have here, I think, is a case of, of course, all mothers love their kids. But, well, that's most mothers. My mother never loved me, and that's the reason I am the way I am. But most mothers love their kids. However, mothers can carry that too far, with an overdose of love. Yes, you can OD on love. Not many of you knew that. Well, I think that's what we have here, a case of overprotectiveness on the part of this mother. I think sometimes you should just, leave them silly kids alone and let them figure it out for themselves. Well, her name is Mrs. Mary so-and-so, who writes, Dear Mr. Lujack, I am the mother of one of the members of a group. I am writing to you in hope that you might give them the start that they deserve. This band is made up of young college and high school students. They have gotten together to form a good group. They have played in such places as Robert's Motel in Gary, Indiana, Vertigo West in Peoria, Jones Commercial High School, and various other schools in the city. They have been on Channel 26's Stars of Tomorrow. You're hitting all the big-time places. That's also the Franklin McCarthy Show. Who's Franklin McCarthy? I have a tape recording music written and arranged by members of the group. I would like very much for you to hear it and play it for others. It is not just for my son that I am writing to you, but for the group that has talent. Then she gives me a brief rundown of each member of the group. And her closing paragraph says, I am looking forward to hearing from you about a time and place for sending the tape or for having a personal interview. Sincerely, Mrs. Mary. Well, see here, Mary, the problem is, like so many apathetic Americans in this country today, I just don't want to get involved. And besides, I can't be objective anymore. I cannot, over the years, having heard so many bands, I can't tell a good one from a bad one anymore. Like last night, I did a gig for Marist High School here in Chicago, rock and roll dance. And there was a band there called Heatherly. And, these gigs, somebody always comes up and says, hey, what do you think of the band? And I don't know. I mean, they sounded okay to me. I always say, hey, a dynamite band. That seems to make them happy, but I really don't know. I don't have time really to listen to tapes and give critiques, and I don't think my critique is worth anything anyway. What I can do is, if you would like this, Mary, perhaps I could go along with you on the gigs and help you blow the kids' noses. all you people who were in the London house the last couple of weeks to hear the Watermelon Man. WCFL in Chicago at 5:29. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letters of the day. Da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-da. Today I'm not going to read my own letters. I didn't get anything that interesting in the mail today. It was the usual. I hate you, Lujack, and I'm never listening again. Yeah, that kind of stuff. To you people, I say good. I don't care. But in emergencies like this, I always read the letters to the editor column in the newspapers. There's some really weird stuff in there. And this one was in, I forget which paper it was, in the paper a couple of weeks ago, and it was so stupid I cut it out and saved it. And I'm going to read it. Now, this is from, before I read the letter, this is from a woman and a mother in one of the suburbs. I'm not going to read her name because I don't like lawsuits. And she signs her name here, and after her name, the letter's M.D. So this woman is a doctor. This is supposed to be an intelligent woman who has been to college and all. But listen to this letter. My daughter, age 15, and her friend, also 15, went to see The Exorcist. Nobody questioned their ages, just took their money. Now she is having nightmares every night. What can a thoughtful parent do to cast a vote against the making of more such vile movies? I have written a strong letter of complaint to the theater manager in Oak Brook. I urge you to bring pressure in print against such sickening movies of this kind. These movies should not be made, and if the money-making urge is so strong, there ought at least to be an enforced X rating. I would much prefer my daughter to see screen images of love-making than such sickening, vile perversions as she told me she saw in this movie. Yet this is just rated R and not enforced at all. I object. In this case, I think the letters M.D. after this woman's name must stand for Mondo Dumbo, because you notice how she, slams everybody there, the theater and the movie company, but doesn't say anything about her precious little girl who at age 15 should at least be able to read at least the letter R. And if a flick is rated R, 15-year-olds are not supposed to go to it without their parents. But I guess her poor little girl was probably just forced into seeing this vile filth and slimy scum. Parents are stupid. Then they wonder why their kids are messed up. Kids are stupid here. I got another one. This is from a kid. Also one of those letters to the editor. Some kids are so naive, they will believe anything. I can remember back in the early days of the Beatles, all the rumors about the individual members of the Beatles, which of course culminated with the famous Paul McCartney's dead and always was rumor. But I can remember back in 1965 and 66 when we used to get calls at the radio station every day with some new rumor about the Beatles. Some terrified 12-year-old girl would call up and say she heard at school that George Harrison was married, and if it was true, she was committing suicide. I thought this was fun because I used to just sit there and confirm all these rumors and say, go ahead. I would never be too good on one of those crisis hotline jobs. But, like especially Ringo. Ringo was rumored to have at one time or another every disease known to mankind, from bubonic plague to leprosy. This is a letter, that Rodney Allen Rippey kid who does the Jack in the Box commercials on television. This letter was written to the editor of the TV magazine over the weekend in the Chicago Tribune. It's from somebody with the initials LR in Highland Park, who writes, I heard that Rodney Allen Rippey was held for ransom for $5,000, but his parents paid it too late and he was shot 5 times in the head. Is this true? Hey, kids, here's one you can spread around school tomorrow. I just made this up. Tony DeFranco has has terminal rigor mortis. WCFL in Chicago at 5:29. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Couple of quickie letters today. This first one, somebody sent me a picture they cut out of the newspaper and scrawled across it. They just have the words, "Hey, Lair, here's another reason to always wear nice underwear." The picture is, I guess this was taken last week when we had those high winds here in Chicago, with gusts up to 50 miles an hour. It was blowing people down on the sidewalk, and that's what the picture is. It shows a shot of a woman here being helped up by a policeman because she has been blown down on the sidewalk, and her dress is blown clear up above her waist. I often point out that, like my mother always told me to always wear nice underwear in case I got in an accident. You don't want to be laying in an ambulance and hear one ambulance guy say to the other, "Hey, can you believe this guy's underwear? It's raggedy. It's dirty." Well, and this is another good reason why this is so important. You never know when you may get blown down on the sidewalk, and some clown from a newspaper will come and... Can you imagine the embarrassment this woman must be feeling when the neighborhood women get together over coffee and say, "Hey, did you see Gladys's rear end on the front page of the Tribune?" Oh, the shame of it. Here's another one. "Dear Mr. Lujack, we were wondering, what are you going to give up for Lent? Would you consider radio?" That's not funny. I'm sorry, I can't do that. As they say, rock and roll is here to stay. And I'm glad, because rock and roll to me is more than just a job. It's my life. My whole life is rock and roll. You can't take away my life. They can't take away my music, can they, Dave? I have delayed this decision until today. I mean, this is not a thing to be taken lightly. This is the beginning of Lent. The bad news is that I am not giving up radio for Lent. Here's the good news. I am giving up the record energy crisis. Not just for Lent, forever. You will never hear me play that turkey again, I promise. 5:30 and time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da, which is from a concerned citizen in Aurora whose name is Jay Heil. "Dear Mr. Lujack, first half of the letter I'm just going to skip. That's just an unsolicited testimonial as to what an incredibly fantastic jock I am. Everybody already knows that, so there's no sense reading it. We'll skip down to the second half here. It has recently been my concern to attempt to get a Ticketron outlet in Aurora. Now, I know you may think Aurora is just a hick town, and I tend to agree with you, but there are a lot of people out here that like to go to concerts and whatever, and hate going all the way to Oak Brook to get tickets. I have written to Ticketron, but all I've gotten is a lot of bull. I'd like to ask you if you would use your influence and try to persuade Ticketron to put an outlet in Aurora. I have in my possession a petition with approximately 1,500 signatures stating that we protest the fact that there is no Ticketron outlet in Aurora. And we petition Ticketron to immediately establish an outlet in Aurora. What procedure would you recommend in presenting this petition to Ticketron? Also, if you have any suggestions on other avenues I may follow in my quest for a Ticketron outlet in Aurora, I would be more than grateful if you would inform me of them. Sincerely. Well, you people out there in Aurora certainly have a lot of nerve. I mean, why do you live in Aurora? You could live in Chicago just like the rest of us. We have everything here in the big city, here in the civilized part of the state. We have Ticketron outlets all over the place. But we pay a price for this. we have to put up with this pollution in the big city, the traffic jams, the crime, the violence. Now, you out there on the prairie, you're living in Aurora because you wanted peace and tranquility. You didn't want that junk that we got, so you have to pay a price, too. There's a price for everything. This reminds me of, all these people who bought homes along Salt Creek. Creeks have been overflowing their banks, since there were creeks. They always do that in the spring when it rains a lot and the snow melts. But every year, the people who bought homes along Salt Creek just express, amazement that their homes get flooded. And they say, well, why doesn't somebody do something about this? Why do our homes get flooded and the people who don't live near creeks, their houses don't get flooded? Come on, folks. And besides, if we were to get a Ticketron outlet in Aurora, the next thing you'd know, Itasca would want one. That's the way things go. And then once they got that in Itasca, I suppose they'd want indoor toilet facilities and give people an inch, they want a mile. WCFL in Chicago at 5:30. It's time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Before, you probably heard me mention the Chicago Reader. What that is a newspaper, snicker, billing itself as the voice of the alternative culture in Chicago, and it's kind of a semi-undergroundy type thing. Today I'm the recipient of a letter from one of the board of editors, Thomas J. Raywalt, who writes, Dear Mr. Lujack, it is with great pleasure and a deep appreciation for your unflagging service to the community that the editors of the Chicago Reader award you this certificate, which they have enclosed, which is emblematic of your selection by our readers as Chicago's worst disc jockey of the year. Influenced, no doubt, by the wit, humility, candor, and dead air that they hear every afternoon from 2 to 6 on CFL, an overwhelming 40% of respondents to the 1973 Reader Chicago Pop Poll chose you as their favorite in the worst disc jockey category. The fierce loyalty of your massive following is indicated by the fact that you received more than 6 times as many votes as your closest rival. Of course, as might be expected in any loving relationship between deified cultural superheroes and wildly adoring public, the Pop Poll voters displayed a certain amount of timorous ambivalence in their feeling for you, selecting you also as Chicago's second best disc jockey. In addition, you tied for second place in the Twerp of the Year category with the rock and roll band Styx, as fine a group of twerps as exists anywhere in the country. Obviously, sir, you are high in the minds of the teeming millions, truly the super jock. It is from the heart of my bottom, therefore, that I present this certificate as a symbol of the community's affection. Respectfully. And then they enclose my certificate here, which says, proudly presented to Larry Lujack in recognition of his having been chosen, and then in big letters, worst Chicago DJ of 1973 by the hippie creeps who read the Chicago Reader, and dated this first day of March by Robert A. Roth, publisher. I don't know what to say. Thanks, hippie creeps. What I would like to see, I'm going to read you some of the results of some of the other categories here. I would like to see a poll conducted among the readers of the Chicago Reader as to how many are on hard drugs, because this poll is weird. In the best disc jockey category, they list the top 5 vote getters. I was only number 2nd. All of these guys are FM people. I have never heard of any of them. The worst Chicago DJ of the year, that was a landslide for me. I got 40% of the votes. Second place was Tom Murphy. You've probably heard of him. He got 6%. Chicago Folk Singer of the Year went to John Prine. Worst Chicago Radio Station of the Year, CFL, landslide there. In the Chicago Twerp of the Year, Mayor Daley was first in the voting there, and then Styx and myself tied for second, beating out Ed Hanrahan, who only placed fourth. Album of the Year, Quadrophenia by The Who. Chicago Rock Group of the Year, Hartsfield. Single of the Year, Ramblin' Man by the Allman Brothers, which beat out You're So Vain by Carly Simon. And, oh wow, their third favorite record was Angie by the Rolling Stones. See, they're all on drugs, the people who read this paper. I think I would have placed higher in the best DJ category if I see all these FM guys here. I just don't say, hey, far out enough and wow like they do. Also, if I played more songs like this, except I don't want to. 5:29 in Chicago. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Which day is from Schaumburg. Two guys named Joe and Tom who work at the Marathon gas station in Schaumburg. Dear Lair, you mentioned something on the radio the other day about a George Harrison concert. Well, when is it, Lair? I tried to get tickets at Ticketron, but the lady said she had never heard of George Harrison, let alone any tickets. And in parentheses, they add, shows what Ticketron people know. Well, you can't blame some little old lady who, maybe George Harrison is just not relevant to her lifestyle. I do this junk for a living, and George Harrison is not relevant to my lifestyle. Can you find out when the concert is and when tickets will go on sale? Also, we heard the Rolling Stones are going to make another U.S. tour. If so, would you happen to know when? Yes, the Stones will tour the U.S. again when they get good and ready to. Now, about the George Harrison thing, that I can help you out a little bit more. That is Sunday, November 3rd, at the stadium. Sunday, November 3rd. And since that's a Sunday, there are two shows. One is in the afternoon at 2 o'clock, and then a night thing at 8 p.m. That's with Ravi Shankar, too. See, I did good on that one. Oh, tickets. Hasn't been announced yet when the tickets are going to go on sale. P.S. Could you get the disc jockey to play Sweet Home Alabama? Well, I'll ask him. Larry Lujack in Chicago. It's 5:30. Time for the Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-dum. Which is canceled today because today is an important anniversary in our city. It's the third birthday anniversary of the Chicago Reader, which is our city's voice of the alternative culture. And in their anniversary issue, they mention, well, I'll get to that later. This whole number I'm doing here comes under the heading of You Pat My Bottom and I'll Pat Yours. Chicago Reader, I think, is the best paper in town. It comes out once a week, and it's real cheap. It's free. And one of the features of each anniversary issue is a deal called Class and Crass, which is self-explanatory. I'll just read you some examples here. They got a whole page full of this stuff. This is Class. Chuck Tanner's Chevy commercial. This is Crass. Dick Butkus's Stereo City commercial. This is Class. Bozo the Clown. This is Crass. John Coleman. This is class. Mean Mary Jean. This is crass. Melody Rogers. I love that one. This is class. Saying my bicycle. This is crass. Saying my 10-speed. This is class. The Klunk Letter of the day. This is crass. The BS horoscope. And they got this other thing in here, which they do every year, called the Heavy 75. The Heavy 75 is a who's who in the Chicago alternative culture. This list is comprised of our city's foremost freaks, hippie drug addicts, leaders of the gay community, left-wing radicals and revolutionaries, commies, weirdos, and troublemakers. And I got a whole list of people here with pictures, and they list their name, and then they put a brief line about who the person is or what he does. Renault Robinson, looking out for black cops and copped blacks. And they got the usuals on here. Hound Dog Taylor, living proof that a happy man can play the blues. And Bill Singer and Studs Terkel and Jesse Jackson. Doc Savage, chauffeur and babysitter to visiting rock dignitaries, now driving that big limo in the sky. And it's got Larry Lujack. Disc jockeys come and go, but the super jock just keeps on coming. Hooray for my side. The reason I am on this list is because I do stuff like call your attention to the fact that this coming Sunday is Gene Autry's 66th birthday, and then I rip into a record like this. On a rock and roll station, I do this in September. If you think management...
You know Dasher and Dancer and Prancer and Vixen.
This is cool, you're wrong.
Cupid and Donner and Bliss. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. You'll go down in history.
This is CFL in Chicago, where Gene Autry has just sung Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer on September 27th. It's 5:30 in Chicago, time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da, da-da-da. This is an anonymous letter, which goes as follows. Dear Superjock, comma, this is the second time I have written to you requesting to hear Buddy Holly records on Super CFL. Remember, as you know, when Buddy Holly died, so did rock and roll. So get your little fanny perpendicular layer and get those Buddy Holly records on the airwaves. You stated in the September 5th Klunk Letter of the Day that you wish someone would request some Buddy Holly records. Well, play some Buddy Holly records. Yeah, I remember the first time you wrote, but on that day, I was feeling okay. See, most of the time, on an average day, to combat the crashing boredom of this job, all I need to do is, stick in an Eagles record or Creedence Clearwater once in a while, and that gets me through the afternoon. I need Buddy Holly most when I get the blues. And today, believe me, I got the blues. Boredom and the blues, that's a killer combination. So, I will. Remember, I am only too happy to play requests for you people, as long as you request what I tell you to. If there's a rock and roll heaven, this guy's the best one there. All right. CFL, Buddy Holly, Not Fade Away. Larry Lujack, it's 5:34. Geez, I wish he'd come back. I wish he'd come back and take Tony Orlando's place. That's what I wish. It's 5:32 in Chicago, time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da. The following is kind of a switch. This is an open letter from me to an individual or individuals unknown. I do know they are crooks. That's all I know about them. So, Dear Crooks, hi guys, how are you? I are fine. Our general manager asked me to do this as kind of a public service, and every once in a while I do something he asks me to just to humor him. Makes him feel like he's really in charge. The reason he selected me to do this is because it's a well-known fact that I have more burglars, shoplifters, muggers, purse snatchers, and sex perverts listening to me than any other disc jockey in the city. I appeal to the criminal element for some reason, as evidenced also by the number of letters I get from convicts in jail. This concerns whoever broke into a green Ambassador station wagon, which was parked in the 4200 block of North Ashland last night. Now, that car belonged to that station wagon belonged to a high school coach, which I could care less about. However, they took a bunch of stuff, and none of the stuff is really that important, except for one thing, that being a 6-inch reel of half-inch videotape. It's a movie tape, is what it is, of part of a football game. You see, about a week ago, there was this kid from Lakeview High School who got hurt in the game, rather seriously injured. He broke his neck. And that's why they need that back, because the doctors, specifically neurosurgeons, need to look at that movie tape so they can determine exactly how he was injured, from what angle he was hit, and so forth, before they can operate. And this is kind of a serious situation, and there ain't no time to poop around on this. So if you were involved in that break-in last night with that green station wagon on, where was it? North Ashland, 4200 block. You can keep the other stuff, that's fine, but send that tape back. You can send it to the athletic department of Lakeview High School, which is at Irving and Ashland in Chicago. And you can send it to COD, they don't care. Athletic Department of Lakeview High School, Irving and Ashland, Chicago. Thank you. Sincerely, Larry Lujack. And now I seal this letter with a kiss. 5:32 in Chicago. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Today's letter is from Chicago, a girl named Kathy Glowala, who identifies herself as a high school junior. Very impressive. Dear Larry, is it true that as a person gets older, his enjoyment for rock and roll music decreases? Obviously, you are living proof that there is no truth to this, but as usual, you probably are an exception to the rule. My parents are also wondering about this because they eagerly anticipate my outgrowth of the addiction I have to this type of music. Well, that's understandable. It is communist music, you know. Also, could you tell me if there's any average age of listeners to CFL? Many thanks. Sincerely, Kathy Glowala. Well, when the surveys or ratings come out, they break it down demographically into age groups. And, of course, the rock and roll stations have all the kids listening. But they also do real good in the 18 to 34 age bracket. In fact, in most cities, rock and roll stations are number one in that age group, 18 to 34. We do real good right up to about 40. After 40, we don't get too many. We get some. But a lot of them, and this is a problem with the ratings, a lot of people, when they get in the upper 30s, see, people in their middle 30s like grew up with this stuff because it started 20 years ago. But when they get up in their upper 30s or 40s, a lot of them still listen to it, but they are embarrassed to admit it. When the rating man comes around, they'll say, they listen to some other station, WLAK or something like that. Now, I can understand that too, because their embarrassment, because I'm embarrassed to admit I work here. You know, I try to keep it a secret to my friends. But to answer your question, it depends. I maintain that when a person tires of rock and roll, a person is tired of life. I say profound things like this all the time. you refer to me as an obvious exception. Actually, to be fair about this, you cannot use me as an example for that because sitting in a control room in rock and roll radio stations for many, many years with headphones on every day while this stuff pounds through your head. I went deaf just about 3 years ago. And so I can't even hear this. However, this is no handicap to my job because when I am done talking and I want Spacey Dave, the hippie on the other side of the glass who runs the controls, when I'm done talking and I want him to start the record or a commercial or something, I just point at him, and then when it's over, he points to me to start talking again. See, so it works out okay. See, I just pointed at him there, and now he has started the record, and even though I can't hear this, I know that this is Bachman Turner Overdrive because I have it written down on a sheet here. I hope you like it. I sure wish I could hear it. It's 5:32 in Chicago, time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-dun, which is from a listener in Lansing who writes, Dear Lair, being a dedicated fan and follower of Super Jock, I would like to inquire as to why Larry Lujack does not work on Saturdays. All the other jocks at Super CFL work 6 days a week. Bill Taylor was working 7 days a week at one time. He needs the money. The last time, if you had the gambling debts that Bill Taylor does, you'd be working 10 days a week if you could. The last time Super Jock worked on Saturday was September 21st. The rest of the time, it's your stunt man. Speaking of your stunt man, who is that clown that sits in for you on Saturdays? He sounds like the same idiot that does the Stereo City Magic 40 commercials and the instant rip-off promotions. Why don't you let Spacey Dave do the show on Saturdays? He sounds more interesting than that jerk that does it now. If your stuntman is around the station, ask him what his name is. He never mentions it when he's on the air. He only says it's the Larry Lujack Show. Nice going, Larry. You've got your stuntman so trained he's forgotten his real name. And this is signed a listener in Lansing who has to work on Saturdays and thinks you should too. Well, I'm sorry I don't share your opinion. Reason for all of this is because, being the big star that I am and the only thing that's holding this station together, I work on Saturdays when I choose to, only when I feel like it. The rest of the guys work 6 or 7 days a week because, for one reason, they need to practice. But I don't. You can't improve on perfection, and that's where I am. I can tell you this, I am working tomorrow. Tomorrow is Saturday, but I will be on the air tomorrow afternoon. That's because my stuntman dropped into my office this morning and saw this letter laying on the desk and read it and got physically ill. And went home for the rest of the day and indicated that he would be sick tomorrow, too. So, hey, thanks a lot. He's okay, though. He is... You're right, he has forgotten his own name. However, it works out better because, like at parties, he will introduce himself as Larry Lujack's stuntman, and the girls immediately, invite him up to their apartment for the weekend and ask him to do stunts. There's a P.S. on this letter. It says, since Super Jock is taking listeners' requests, I have a request. Could Super Jock play Underwater by the Frogmen? It is my favorite oldie, and it has a Nido Torpedo sound to it. Well, I got some good news and bad news on that. The good news is that your request did meet my one and only qualification. That is that I only play records that are requested that I like. And that one qualifies. Underwater by the Frogmen was a dynamite cooking oldie, and I just love to play it for you. But the bad news is it is so old. I mean, I can't remember how far back that goes, but it's not in our record library, so I can't. So how about a nice Polish love song instead? 5:30 in Chicago, time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da, first little unfinished business. In regard to a letter last week, somebody who requested Underwater, that's the name of a song, Underwater by the Frogmen. Smoking oldie. I know I said that I'd play that Saturday, but I didn't. Then I said I'd play it Monday. No, we're not playing it today. No, we're playing it tomorrow, though. That's definite. Now then. Actually, this is not a letter, but it's because of a Klunk letter of the day, which was read last month, that we got some real good ink in the newspaper. Now, this is not the Tribune or the Sun-Times. This is a big-time newspaper, the Hazel Crest Star. And they have an article in here about Spacey Dave. This was in yesterday's issue. And up at the top here is a big picture of Spacey Dave at work. And underneath the picture it says, Spacey Dave, the engineering mastermind of the Larry Lujack show, prepares to put the program on the air. Here's a picture of Dave with his usual bored look, playing with the cartridge machines. Well, the reason for this was this woman who wrote the article happened to be listening the day that I read the letter from Dave when he was on vacation. Now, you're probably wondering, why would some woman write a dumb article about a rock and roll engineer? Well, I think this is explained. Let's see, I called the Hazel Crest Star, and I got a list of some of the other articles that this woman, whose name is Jerry Bader, some of the other articles that she's written for the Hazel Crest Star. They include the following. See, mostly she just writes housewifey, homemaker stuff. Here's some of the titles of her other articles. How to hold a successful garage sale. Homeowner's Handbook on Natural Lawn Care Methods and Organic Gardening. Here was another headline of one of our articles. Beware of poison plants. And here's the one I love. Broccoli. It's tasty and easy to grow. See, she writes a lot about vegetables, so I think that's why she picked Dave. Okay, for the first paragraph, I'm just going to read you some select paragraphs. Here's some interesting stuff in here about Dave, some of this stuff I didn't know myself. The first part here, she's quoting off the air from that day that we read the letter. It says, it's 5:30 on Super CFL, time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. It comes to us from the beautiful exotic resort village of Hazel Crest, where Spacey Dave is spending his vacation because that's where he lives. With these words, South suburban rock fans learned that the hippie engineer who pushes the buttons and whose one-liners are often quoted on the air by Lujack lives right in their midst. Yes, property values in Hazel Crest just plummeted. Now, I'll pick out a couple more paragraphs. Here's some interesting things here. It says here that Dave's interest in electronics dates back to his early school years, which he spent in Homewood Park, Forest, and Madison schools. Though he liked rock music and spent some time toying with a friend's tape recorder, it wasn't until 7th grade that he received his own recorder, which he still has today. Geez, that's neat, Dave. You know, maybe someday we could have show and tell here, and you could bring your recorder to work with you and show us. In the 8th grade, Dave bought an amplifier kit with money that he says he earned sweeping floors in a Richton Park radio and television repair shop. And after reading extensively about electronics in high school, he quit the baseball team and became station engineer at Rich East High School's FM radio station. Dave also set up his own small station at home and broadcasted from bedroom to bedroom using an amplifier, speaker, microphone, tape recorder, recorder player, and some long wire. And then she has another quote here from the letter that we read. It says, Dave says he is really into life, love, peace, Kung Fu, Black History, and Scott's Turf Builder. Now here comes, I'm going to just read the last paragraph and then I quit because I know I'm putting everybody to sleep. This comes as a real shocker to me, and I'm just disgusted at the thought of this. After reading this last paragraph, I just lost all respect, what little I had for Dave. It says, Dave met his wife, Mary, because of the many calls she and a friend made to the station for record requests. After a year of talking to her on the telephone, they began to date. 4 years later, they were married. And for the past 5 years, they have been living in Hazelcrest. So basically what it says here is that he married a groupie. And that's disgusting. Groupies are just to, mess around with. You're not supposed to marry them, Dave. Come on. At 5:31, time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Before we get to today's letter, some unfinished business. To the listener who wrote in last week and requested the song Underwater by the Frogmen. Today is the day we play it. Okay, now, today's letter is from Hinsdale. The guy's name is Charles G. Schlewit, Jr. Also, he has enclosed his business card here and says if I ever need... says, I've enclosed my business card if you should ever need more life insurance. He works for a life insurance. No. I'm going to live fast, love hard, die young, and leave no estate whatsoever. I've adopted Evel Knievel's philosophy on that. I'm going to spend every damn dime. Well, he has enclosed something he clipped out of the newspaper, the Chicago Tribune, Gary Deeb's column. Gary Deeb is a troublemaker, is what he is. Where in this column, Mr. Deeb referred to our news department here at CFL as, quote, the sewer of Chicago radio news. I don't know why Mr. Deeb does this. He is so hostile to our station. I think he just hates rock and roll, and he hates disc jockeys even more. And now this time he's ticking off on our news department. Of course, what he says is true. Our news department is the sewer of Chicago news, so we won't be suing him, but, he doesn't have to tell everybody that. He's a cruel person. The Tribune has other dumb things, too, besides Gary Deeb's column. And now... Okay, this is somebody from Lansing wrote in last week and wanted to hear a song, Underwater by the Frogmen. Neat song. I don't know when this was a hit. I think this was back in the early 60s when I was a rock and roll hero in Boise, Idaho, and knocking them dead. At any rate, I haven't heard it since then. And it's one of those obscure type things that you don't hear on the radio very much. In fact, we didn't even have it in our record library. Spacey Dave just happened to have it in his own personal oldie collection at home. Yeah, I play requests. Now, like today, somebody wrote in and requested a bottle of wine. I ain't gonna play that. I mean, that's a good song by the Fireballs, but that's not really cool, man. It's not obscure enough. You hear that one all the time. For instance, another one I'm working on, a couple of weeks ago, I played Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which sounds, really hip in September to play that. Somebody wrote in and requested Back in the Saddle Again by Gene Autry. Dynamite song, and I've ordered that from the record company, and as soon as it gets here, I can hardly wait. Hear that one. Anyway, this is, for that listener in Lansing, Underwater by the Frogmen. Dig it. You may not like the instrumental track on this, but you're going to love the words. All right. All right, that was just plain neat. At 5:31 in Chicago, time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da, the Mother Clunker. Right. This is a letter from a guy named Carl who lives in Park Ridge. Hey, Lair. It sure was neat when you played that record by Walter Brennan. How about showing today's kids what real music sounds like and spinning Back in the Saddle Again by Gene Autry? I got this letter a couple of weeks ago, but it's taken me this long to find the record. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to continue playing these obscure oldies that you clowns want to hear. When I played the Walter Brennan thing, many eyebrows were raised in the front office. And last month, when I played Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer in September, they didn't think it was anywhere near as neat as I did. Well, I'm not programming to the front office. I'm programming to the public, right? Right. I suppose that today's kids never even heard of Gene Autry. I suppose, like some of the boys might know that he owns a baseball team, but there was a day back when I was just a little bitty kid when Gene Autry was a hot singer. Everything he put out turned to gold. So, by request, this is Gene Autry at 78 RPM. You're gonna love it.
I'm back in the saddle again.
CFL. Where Gene Autry has just sung Back in the Saddle Again. Larry Lujack at 5:36. You will not be hearing that one on the Solid Gold weekend. 5:31 in Chicago. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da. Da-da-da, which is from Huntley, Illinois. I don't know where that is. Girl's name is Donna Britton, who writes, Dear Mr. Lujack, I am writing to question the worth of the CFL surveys. Over the weekend, I went shopping at Woodfield and had an opportunity to visit the ladies' room. As I was utilizing the facilities, I had to put my head down in shame after reading the graffiti on the walls. And what should I find on the floor but Johnny Driscoll smiling up at me from a Super CFL survey. His face was almost as repulsive as the graffiti. I didn't need this, Lair, and I was wondering if anybody really does. Sincerely. That was a wonderful story, Donna, and I think it would make a fantastic movie. I'm going to send this letter to American International, and maybe we can split the profits. It's easy for you to sit out there in Huntley and, I'll say this for Driscoll. Guys can't really judge other guys, but he's a lot better looking than the guy who had that show before him. I personally think he's attractive. I'll be the judge of who's repulsive. You send me a picture of you, Donna, and I've got a picture of Driscoll, and I will compare the two, and I will be the judge. I'll tell you who's repulsive and who's not. This reminds me of a story. Would you like to hear this story? Well, us big rock and roll heroes, we do a lot of personal appearances at dances and concerts and stuff like that. And I can remember a couple, 3 years ago, it was in the winter time, and I think it was over in Michigan somewhere in some rural community where I was doing a rock and roll dance with some rock and roll band. And, you take along albums to give away and autograph pictures and surveys and T-shirts, whatever you can steal from the station. And this is in the winter, and a lot of the kids had runny noses. They had colds. And some of the people were using our CFL surveys as the emergency Kleenex. And it had my picture on it that week, and that is really a downer to stand there and watch, some silly chick blow her nose in your face. CFL, it was the wrong song, but it was Walk a Mile in My Shoes by Joe South. All these songs sound alike anyway, folks. It makes no difference. It It's 5:30 in Chicago. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-dun. But first we pause for station identification. From Chicago, Illinois, booming across the fruited plain with 50,000 watts, you are listening to your favorite disc jockey, me, from your favorite station. Want to make sure that you know where I work. And now the Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da. This is the letter that was rained out yesterday. It's from a guy named Joe, who writes, Dear Lair, last Saturday night at the New Riders of the Purple Sage concert, a friend said, Hey, there's Lujack walking in. Sure enough, it looked like you. Anyway, I was just wondering if it was you. Yes, it was. That's why it looked like me. I'll say this much, if it was you, Super Jock certainly has good taste in music. How about some comments on the concert? As far as AM goes, your show is about the only thing to listen to. It's too bad you have to play so much trash. It is, isn't it? It's a heartache, a rock and roll heartache. Well, as for comments on the show, I think, I said yesterday, one of the best concerts I've ever been. And, of course, it's always a pleasure to get out there on a Saturday night and mingle with all you drug-crazed hippies and, see how the revolution is coming, get to rap with you. And like I said yesterday, I've decided that the New Riders of the Purple Sage are my favorite band now, and I have demoted the Eagles to second place. I hope the Eagles don't hear about that because they may, I'll say, what's the use? Super Jack doesn't like us anymore. We might just well break up. I still like them, but not as good as the New Riders. P.S. How about playing something from the Riders? Well, the answer to this question is, why not? It's my show. I can do what I want. This is a song that they sang at the concert on Saturday night called Singin' Cowboy. Oh, yeah. CFL is Singin' Cowboy by the New Riders of the Purple Sage, which is the disc jockey's fave band. Yes, it is. CFL in Chicago. It's 5:30. The Larry Lujack Lantern Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Did you get it? Lujack Lantern, isn't that clever? Is preempted so that we may bring you, in its entirety, Mr. Lujack's Halloween address to the nation and to the republic for which it stands. And now, here's Mr. Lujack. Hey, smattering of applause. Thank you. Driscoll, get out of here now. Leave me alone. Leave. Thank you, my fellow Americans. Happy... Driscoll, I said leave, and I'm not kidding. I am Super Jock. When I say leave, you leave. Happy Halloween to you and your loved ones, my fellow Americans. Some of the trick-or-treaters, of course, the little ones, are already out, and early reports indicate that the favorite costumes this year are, in first place, Planet of the Apes costumes. Those are neat. In second place, Evel Knievel. A tie for third place between Alice Cooper and Melody Rogers. The Melody Rogers costume is really scary. And fourth place, Len O'Connor costumes. That's a cheapo costume where you just, paint your hair white and wear a suit and whine a lot. Now, first of all, to you motorists on the way home, remember when you get off the expressways tonight and into the residential areas, drive very slowly and very carefully. so that you don't hit any of the little trick-or-treaters. Because if you hit one, it could put a big dent in your car. Also, also to you parents. Now, this is very important. This is something I remind you of each year. You don't have to take no you-know-what off those kids. I mean, it seems like it's more smart-alecky every year, I know. If some kid comes up to your house and says, "Trick or treat, smell my feet," you can bash that kid right in the face. And no jury in the land will convict you. I mean, you probably won't even go to the jury. You just say, "Hey, Judge, a kid told me trick or treat, smell my feet," and he'll say, "Case dismissed." So go ahead and hit the kid. And now, boys and girls, before I play Monster Mash, this is the only day of the year that I play that song, I remind you of something that you've heard from your parents often. Now, you may think that because it's Halloween, that this rule does not apply. Wrong, boys and girls. It is always in effect. And that rule is, do not accept candy from strangers. It's very important because, boys and girls, there are some real sickos out there. And you would not believe some of the tricks that they're going to expect in return for treats. And never, under any circumstances, accept an invitation to go into the house. Be careful, boys and girls, and happy trick-or-treating to you. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da, da-da-da, da-da-dun. The award-winning Klunk Letter of the Day feature is canceled today because of this clunky phone call which I just received. And he's been on hold for the last 3 minutes. What a feeling of power to put Elton John on hold. I hope he's still here. Hi, Elton John.
Hi, how are you? About average.
Well, yeah, about average. That's about as good as I ever get.
Right.
Well, first, do you want to say it's great to be in Chicago and it's one of your favorite cities and all the standard things that a visiting recording artist is supposed to say?
Oh, well, it's nice to be in Chicago. Shame about the weather, but we came straight from Honolulu, so it was a bit of a bring down. But it's nice to be back in a city again. It's really, I like cities.
Actually, you've been in town for, quite a few days before the concert. What have you been doing with your time?
Well, we've been in town since about Tuesday. We've been doing concerts in St. Louis and Minneapolis. So I really haven't had much time to do anything because we've been flying back and forwards every day. But I've just been out shopping, bought a couple of things here and there.
I read somewhere that you're spending some time over at Playboy because they're doing an article on you in an upcoming issue, right?
Yeah.
Well, when is that going to come out?
I'm not sure when that's coming out, but we're doing the interview thing. So magazines usually take quite a bit of time to come out because they work so far in advance. So probably next year sometime.
Anything, exciting that's happened on the tour so far that you could tell us about, or any exciting things that you don't want to tell us about on the
there's
tour?
lots of exciting things that I can't tell you about. But no, it's just we've had an incredible tour so far. I mean, it's just been very wild. It's just the audiences have been absolutely crazier than I ever thought they could be. And we've just been having a good time. Nothing out of the ordinary has happened, thank goodness. No dangerous things or. We just been playing well and just having good gigs.
Out of all the stuff you've done, all the songs that you've recorded, which song are you the most proud of? Which is the best thing that you think you've done?
That's a hard question, people often ask me that. I don't really know. I don't think I have one that I'm particularly fond of. When you write songs, usually you're most fond of the one you've just written. So I suppose we've already got a new album in the can. So I suppose my favorite things are on that album because I haven't heard them so much. But if I had to choose like one or two songs in retrospect, I'd say Say Your Song and Benny and the Jets and Don't Let the Sun and Daniel. I don't know, it's very hard to choose because I go on and off them so quickly, you know. For a period of time I like something and then I don't like it. And, you know, you have to be very fickle when you write your own songs.
Yeah. Other artists, like when Elton John goes home and puts on the stereo, what people do you listen to?
No, let me see. That's such a hard... I mean, that's another hard question because I could stay here all night telling you. But Stevie, at the moment, Stevie Wonder, Joni Mitchell, and Jackson Browne, and people like that, you know, I really admire. I listen to a lot of black music because I've always been brought up on it and played in a group that tried to play Otis Redding type stuff. So I listen to a lot of Stevie Wonder and Aretha Franklin and people like that. And I think Joni Mitchell is about the best songwriter there is around today.
Who's the best disc jockey you ever heard of?
Oh, I have to say Larry Lujack.
Elton John, what radio station do you listen to?
I listen to Super CFL.
You answered that real good, and we're going to send you a copy of Tony Orlando's greatest hits.
God, you're so kind.
Elton, thank you. Live happily ever after, and may all of your Christmases be white. Okay, bye. Back. It's 5:35. Time for the Larry Lujack Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da. And today's letter is from a student at the University of Wisconsin in Madison, whose name is Thomas James Whiting, who writes, Dear Superchuck, in 1969 and 1970, I was a cheerleader for the University of Wisconsin. My official title was Mic Man, which meant that I was the clown on the microphone whose job it was to fire up the student sections during the boring portions of the Badger football games. Back in those days, of course, Wisconsin football offered very little to cheer about, so, patterning myself after you, I did the best that I could. Naturally, I didn't have the big-time, major-market voice that you possess, but somehow I managed. I'd like to break in here for just a second. This, I think, explains something. You know, during that period of time that he's talking about, late 60s, early 70s, there was, of course, a great deal of unrest and turmoil on our nation's campuses, and Madison, you know, was a real hotspot. Was a real hotspot for this kind of student activist junk. You know, hardly a day went by when there was not some report out of Madison that the University of Wisconsin students had blown up the administration building, or you know, they were holding all the faculty members hostage in the gym. So one wonders today, looking back in retrospect, you know, if the University of Wisconsin football team had won a few more games and you know, got a little more student interest, that perhaps all this other stuff would never have occurred. But I think the thinking at that time was, they said, well, hey, our football team can't beat anybody, so hell, let's overthrow the government. So they couldn't do that either. They can't do anything right up there. On with the letter here, last paragraph. My reason for writing is this. I recently got a letter from the University of Wisconsin Alumni Cheerleading Association. They want me to not only attend their annual homecoming banquet, but to also give a small introductory speech and act as master of ceremonies. I know how you feel about high school homecomings, but what about big-time universities? If you do approve, could you give me a few tips on banquet speaking? Thank you very much. Sincerely, Thomas James Whiting. Well, Thomas James Whiting, you college children are so naive. For one thing, what makes you think that there's any difference between high school students and university students? You know, you're just a little bigger, that's all. Larry Lujack from Chicago. It's time for the Klunk Letter of the Day. Da-da-da, 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 which is from Loyola University. Student's name is John Brynjolfsson. Swedish name or something. Dear Mr. Lujack, I am currently a student at Loyola University, and I am considering going into recording engineering. I don't know exactly why I'm writing to you, but I thought you might know. I am wondering if an electrical engineering program is the general area to start in for eventually becoming a studio engineer. That's what Spacey Dave is, see. Also, how does one begin to specialize in studio engineering, and are they in demand? For what? You in demand, Dave? Well, I would greatly appreciate a reply and hope you will get to read this letter instead of your secretary. Thank you. Sincerely, John Brynjolfsson. Well, there is one line in there that offends me, John. That is a line that you don't know why you're writing to me. I know all of you engineering students, think you're kind of superior. Dave is that way, too, sometimes. I think most of you probably think of me as, just some bubblegummy dip who plays Tony Orlando records. This may stun you, but I possess a first-class Federal Communications Commission radio telephone license. I've been to college, man. I got educated and smart so as I could talk real good and fluent. Dave also possesses... I even remember Ohm's Law. You think I don't know this stuff, huh? Ohm's Law, I equals E over R. Current equal to the voltage divided by the resistance. I know what I'm doing. Dave also has a first-class FCC radio telephone license. However, he has something that I don't. He has, along with his, the coveted radar endorsement, which means not only is he qualified to punch buttons back there on John Denver cartridges, but he can also run radar. or engage in radar love with anyone he chooses. Your main problem, as I see it, John, is that you're at Loyola. Nobody learns anything there. You've got to go to a better school. I suggest the one Dave attended. Dave went to a very prestige Ivy League school, Rich East in Park Forest. That's how he got his background.